T.B.D.
To be determined. To be determined. To be determined.
T.B.D. To be determined.
Welcome to T.B.D. here on the Sports Betting Channel, the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and Belly Up Sports. I am second half Chaz, and over all the seasons of Sports Betting Weekly, we've been fortunate to meet many great handicappers. And every Saturday morning, you're going to be able to hear from some of them. Now, what's more important is you're also going to get their plays for the weekend. When you're a sports bettor, Saturday morning is a special time. And even though it arrives bright and early out here in San Diego, it's the same wherever you place your wagers. How's your weekend going to go? It's TBD. Will you crush it? Win enough to change your day, your week, or your month? You know what? It's to be determined. All right, so like always, whenever we get together with Mo, I tell people it's funny because I've known Mo more than anybody in this business, and he's so knowledgeable about so many things. And being that this is the first week, Mo, of real football, these games count in college football, we're not really going to lean that way. We're going to talk a little more about the preseason, mostly, and no disrespect to any of these names, Mo, but mostly because it's Southern Utah, San Jose State, Hawaii, the Bruins, UTEP, New Mexico State. You know what I'm saying? You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you.
But don't get me wrong, down the road, those teams may be really important teams to us because sometimes, as you know, in sports betting, it's not necessarily who you're betting as much as who you're betting against. So let's look at a few of the games for this week 3. Now, let's talk about this whole concept of week 3. There's no week 4 in the preseason. How do you see this week 3 coming out?
Well, actually, technically by the NFL schedule, it's week 4 because they counted the Hall of Fame game as week 1. But, it's the time of year normally now when these guys are making the roster or not making the roster and making a practice squad or they're out of the NFL. So this is an important week, not only for the starters to get a little bit of work, but for guys to make football teams. So this is normally the week that I like where you get good, really hard-nosed football.
There's no doubt that in the past, the last week, you did not see starters. We're seeing starters this weekend.
Yeah, we're seeing starters, and then we're in the second half probably going to see the hardest played football of all year because you got guys competing to be number 53 on that roster. And, that's a huge difference pay-wise and from being, the guy on the practice squad. So we're going to see starters work against starters because there aren't teams practicing with teams all week long like there were the last 2 weeks. So we're going to see guys playing real football this week.
And they talked about that in one of the games I watched this past week. You're not just trying to make that team or that practice squad because there are 31 other teams that are going to see this film as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. A lot of times when guys get cut, you'll see coaches make calls for them. If you've ever watched the series Hard Knocks on HBO, it's a lot of it following guys who do get cut, who catch on other places. So it's an audition for a good fourth of the roster this week in the second half. So it's always fun, good football this week. It's not 100% NFL style football all the way through, but guys playing super hard this week to try to make rosters.
All right, so let's talk about this week. Now, this week on the show, we're not going to talk any NCAA. We're not going to talk about any NFL regular season. We're talking about NFL preseason. Now, that doesn't make us derelicts for you guys that don't believe in preseason, because one of the things about the Easy Sports data is that we have followed this stuff for preseason now for many, many years, and it's amazing how often we're right just because the teams do the same. Teams do the same. They do whatever they're going to do, they do it. Whether it's going over, going under, not scoring, whatever the case may be. Now, does it come from the ownership down? Does it come from the GM down? Does it come from the coach down? Who cares when you're catching tickets? And that's the one thing about to be determined, whether it's something got to give or it's Saturdays in Canada or it's Paulo's Plays or it's Wake and Bake. We're here to cash tickets. This isn't 100% entertainment. This is about making some money. So let's talk about that Baltimore-Washington game.
Well, you're looking at a couple teams right now who have had really good preseasons so far. Washington has been a team to really watch. And I really like Antonio Gibson from the Redskins. He's a guy that if you play daily fantasy, he's a guy who's going to score you, I think, a lot of points this year. Washington's looking to use him as kind of a Christian McCaffrey type back where they're going to throw it to him, short passes out of the backfield, plus running the football. And Baltimore's tough. They've been tough on defense. You've got a pretty good offense. They've added to that through free agency and the draft. But this week you've got a team in Baltimore who's got, the drive 10 miles to play at Washington. So it's not really an away game. Because they're at home and because I really like this team and the fight in it so far, I like Washington to win the football game this week. It's one of those ones where I think you'll see very limited first team starters from the Ravens. I think you'll see more backups looking to play in rookies. I think Washington's going to go out there and try to prove something early on, even though it's only the preseason. I like the Redskins.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, if you're betting NFL, as long as we've been betting NFL, we've never had a season where there were 17 regular season games. We do this year.
Yeah, it's exciting too because that's one more week where every team plays, where the players, the names, and for week 17, probably going to be really important to a lot of teams that are looking to either make the playoffs or not be a wild card team. So I'm all about one less preseason game and another regular season game that counts.
Yeah, there has been some action I've caught this year that left a little to be desired. But when we get back, we're going to talk a couple more games. And remember, you're watching a guy right now that had a pretty nice run a couple seasons back where he didn't have a loser for an entire month. You're listening to Something's Gotta Give on To Be Determined. We'll be right back.
EasySportsData.com. The books use data. Shouldn't you too? And this is easy sports data, like the preschoolers use. EasySportsData.com.
Welcome back to Something's Gotta Give on To Be Determined. Now, the beauty about To Be Determined, Mo, is when you wake up on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock in California or 11 o'clock in New York, the bottom line is if you're a sports bettor and it's football season, your weekend is still to be determined. You have you go 5-0 and you're smart enough to throw a 5-teamer in there, that could change your whole day.
That could change my whole month. So yeah, it's exciting time of year because football's back, and I'm tired of betting on baseball, so I'm ready to bet on some NFL.
Yeah, and I've had a great run with our Easy Sports data on baseball this year, especially with the team totals, because as you know, when bats get, we talked earlier, remember with the Cubs went like 14 straight games. They didn't score more than 3 runs, but that team total never got under 3.5. They actually had a couple W's during that run. But if you're betting their team total, if they're at home and they're not batting in the ninth and they're winning 3-1 and you got team total 3.5, life's pretty good. There's no doubt about that. One of the things I wanted to mention is, we're not holding this week's records against you. But next week, we're going to
thank you.
Next week, we're going to be talking real college football. I'm pretty confident you'll have no reason to not hold those records against you. So later in the day on Saturday, we've got the Chicago-Tennessee game. Talk to us.
Well, Chicago looked good in its first game when Justin Fields came in. They decided to start Andy Dalton last week, and the wheels came off against Buffalo. Andy Dalton will be the starter when the game 1 kicks off, but Justin Fields is starting this football game. The Titans are a team that are a veteran team. They've got Derrick Henry, who can just run it down your throat. They picked up Julio Jones from the Falcons, along with A.J. Brown. They're a pretty formidable team on offense. But, Justin Fields brings an excitement. I mean, if you look at the Bears last week, they had a sold-out preseason home game. So he brings some excitement to this team and to the city. They are playing in Tennessee, Nashville. It should be blazing hot, even still at game time come Saturday night. But I think with Justin Fields starting the game, if he's going to play the first half, the Bears have a chance to come in, score some points, and get up on Tennessee early. I'm going to take the away Bears against the Titans come Saturday night.
No, of course, they're still favored, but I got to think that there was some heart skipping when he got whacked in the head that day, that game.
Yeah, I think so, but I think that some people feel like their Bears head coach Matt Nagy has a head injury, with stating that Andy Dalton's still going to be the starter come game one. I don't know what the hell he's thinking, because let's be honest, both him and the GM Ryan Pace, the Bears are playing for their jobs right now. So the fact that he's starting Andy Dalton game one, it makes absolutely zero sense to me.
Yeah, and again, it's tough because you've got a locker room, your team, you're trying to keep everything together. And personnel decisions are not easy to make for whatever reason. And there's just not a lot of young kids that come out of college and go into a 16-game season and do well, never mind a 17-game season. So maybe that has something to do with it.
I think that when you look at these young guys now, the precedent has been set for these guys to come out and take their lumps early. As a Colts fan, I watched Peyton Manning go 3-13 and set a record for interceptions in a season his rookie year. But you know what? They were 13-3 year two. So, and I realized none of these kids are Peyton Manning, but if the Bears aren't going to be great, get in there, take your lumps, because they sure as hell aren't going to the playoffs with Andy Dalton. So why not get Justin Fields in there, get him some experience, and be ready for next year?
Well, of course, Andy Dalton has a great record of getting to the playoffs. Gets there, he struggles a wee bit,
Oh, geez, he sucks now.
All right, finally, we're going to talk about the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to Houston Saturday night.
Yeah, you're not going to see a lot of Tom Brady, obviously. And Houston has played okay so far in the preseason. They're going to be another team that's probably going to be terrible this year, because who knows what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. He doesn't want to be there. Who knows if he's going to be suspended or not. They don't have a ton of skill players around him. This should be a game that Tampa wins. But again, how long, when you've got a 40-plus-year-old quarterback in Tom Brady and you're on the road, does he play? I am gonna take the Texans to upset the Bucs Saturday night.
Well, yeah, and again, it's so funny because it really it doesn't matter at all, this game. It really doesn't matter to anybody, except if I've got a three-teamer and the first two plays that you gave me cash, well, yeah, all of a sudden this Tampa Bay-Houston game means an awful lot to me. So that's where it's going to be for me Saturday evening. There's no doubt about it. I will be bouncing, of course, back and forth watching some of those college games, and I might look for some opportunities in live action. Do you foresee yourself watching any of these college games Saturday?
No. No. I mean, college for me is about really watching the guys who are going to be playing next year on Sunday. I enjoy college football, but I enjoy it more so I'm more prepared for the NFL draft, as big of a nerd as I am when it comes draft time. So I enjoy the college game, but not as much as I enjoy the pro game. So I watch the Saturday game just to purely know what I'm looking towards for next year in the NFL.
Well, next week, that's exactly what we'll have. We'll have full-time college football mode. We'll talk to you then.
All right, my friend. It was a pleasure.
As always, appreciate your time. It is pretty exciting, Blackhawk West, to have our first full season of covering CFL on the show. Now, you have covered it for many, many years. How long do you think you've been betting on CFL football?
Probably around 5 years. And it's been an exciting ride. As you've seen, it's a very different game. It is football. It's still throw the ball, catch the ball, run the ball, but there's some different things that can sneak up on you if you don't quite understand the rules. But God, it's really an exciting game. And normally for me, it takes away that summer slump of not having football. It starts in June. And by the time we get to college football, which is typically Labor Day or week 0, a week prior, I'm ready to go, and I got a good feel for it.
Yeah, so in a non-pandemic year, what week would this be in Canadian Football League?
In a non-pandemic year, we're at the end of August, so this would be somewhere in the week 12, 13-ish.
But I know my Easy Sports data here for the first time has 3 full weeks of data overall. However, we still have some teams, of course, that have not played at home, have not done what they need to do. But we're not going to worry about that. We're going to learn a little bit about Canadian football, and whether or not you like the game is kind of irrelevant if you cash tickets. And I have cashed tickets with you. Not last year. Last year, I don't think I cashed one CFL ticket with you. Yuck. However, a couple of years before that for sure. So I've been around here for 3 of those 5 years. But we've got a couple games on Saturday that we're going to talk about every week. And that's hence the name of the segment is Saturdays in Canada. We're not physically going to Canada, even though I just got an interview with Paulo scheduled for Paulo's Plays, and he's in Canada, which is pretty ironic. But we are going to be talking about those games on Saturday. And if you want to hear about the earlier games, the Thursday and Friday games, you got to check Sports Betting Weekly out on Thursdays, 8 o'clock New York time, 8 o'clock p.m. But for right now, what I'm going to do is ask you a few questions about Canadian football that I'm still puzzled with. So we're doing the data, and all of a sudden, I see the score was 1-4. Now, in any other world, I would yell at the data entry guy or girl and say, hey, you made a mistake. There's no 1s. There's no 4s. But that's not the case, is it?
No, and you can call it the rouge, or you can call it the single. And it is a strategy piece, and it can really cost you the hook, or it can gain you the hook, depending on which side of that hook you happen to be on. But the single point, the way that works is the ball on a kickoff just gets kicked right out of the end zone, or on a punt. Whenever the ball is not returned out of the end zone, however that comes, that results in 1 point for the kicking team. So it can either be kicked out of the end zone, or it can be kicked into the end zone, and the team chooses not to return it. That is 1 point. Where it gets very interesting is in a lot of cases, the receiving team, if they choose not to take the ball out of the end zone, they're ready to sacrifice the point rather than taking it out of the end zone, possibly getting tackled on the 5-yard line. You got to keep in mind, this end zone is 20 yards. This is not a 10-yard NFL end zone. So if they're catching the ball 15 yards deep into the end zone, they got to go 35 yards before they get the same thing that they would for a touchback, a traditional touchback. So in some cases, it's worth sacrificing the point.
So in other words, the field then is 20 yards on both the end zones and 105 yards in the middle?
Yep. It's there's the center line, and then there's the center line, which is essentially the 55-yard line. No, I apologize. It's a 110-yard field. So there's the center line, and then there's the 50 on each side.
So it's 20 plus 110.
Yes.
Wow, I did not realize that part. And how wide is it?
The width, don't quote me on this, but I think it's just a touch wider, not noticeable enough to make a difference.
All right, so how come you get a single ball out of bounds? What does that mean?
You're talking about the single point?
It's a single ball out of bounds. That's what
I got that one. I got to look up because that one doesn't happen very often. That's usually a procedure, or illegal procedure.
Well, in the same game, I got single ran out of bounds. You can't run out of bounds.
It has to do with on the kickoff or if they take it out of the end zone or not. That I'm not 100% on that one.
So we're going to pay attention to those because, again, you just don't see one of the games. It was 1-20 was the score. 1-20 just threw me off. It made me chuckle. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
All right. So up to this point in the season, now I know week 1 it was tough. There was all dogs, but you've done okay in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're right around 63%. It was a rough start. A lot of dogs showed up opening week, and I think this past week, week 3, showed us a lot. I had an idea that Calgary was going to show up, that they needed a change at quarterback, which they got it. I never thought in my lifetime I'd be calling for Bo Levi Mitchell to not be starting a game. He's been something of a hero for Calgary, but he threw 4 interceptions the prior game, and I felt like we needed a change at QB, and we got it. And Calgary turned around and won a game, and they looked good doing it. They hung 28 points last week against Montreal, and it was a good performance. I think that we have a couple gifts. So the first couple weeks, Hamilton is coming off of a bye week this week, but the first couple weeks they played Winnipeg and they played Sask. Well, week 1 and 2, Winnipeg looked like a pretty unstoppable team. The best in the league is what I felt like they were in weeks 1 and 2. Then you got Sask, who's just got what's about to be a generational talent at quarterback in Cody Fajardo. And so You play those two teams week 1 and 2. The result of it, them losing and not scoring very many points, they're going into this week at -2. And, even if this is a close game against Montreal, we might have another gift next week with Hamilton and a very short spread. So, there's that. And then, looking at last week, Saskatchewan looks like the best team. It looks like the best team in the CFL. They didn't look very good last week, and they still won by 13 points and put up 23.
All right, so when we get back from break, we're going to look at the 2 games on Saturday because it's Saturdays in Canada. You're listening to Saturdays in Canada on To Be Determined. We'll be right back.
You can get championship footballs at championshipfootballs.com. They offer a 100% money-back guarantee on every single souvenir football that they sell. It's the coolest present that they'll open that day, guaranteed. There's nothing worse than trying to find the right gift for somebody that already has everything. Whether that special present is for a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan or an Alabama Crimson Tide backer, maybe Gramps is a lifelong Dallas Cowboys supporter, or your brother-in-law is in LSU Tiger territory. Know a member of the Baylor Alumni Association? Is there a better Father's Day gift for someone who's a Kansas City Chiefs fan? Send them the coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Now, if your favorite pro team is the Buffalo Bills or those Minnesota Vikings, well, we're sorry about that. Also, if you're a New Mexico State Aggie or a Tulane Green Wave alum, not much they can do. After all, the name isn't nice effort, you had a pretty good season footballs.com. The name is championshipfootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed.
Welcome back to Saturdays in Canada on To Be Determined with Blackhawk West. Now, I'm looking at the schedule, and it looks like we could have named the segment this week Weekends in Canada because there's the game Saturday and Sunday. So tell us what's kind of how the schedule works going forward for the CFL.
Well, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is typically what you can look forward to. Labor Day weekend, we typically see Monday games, which when we get into Labor Day, we're looking at a noon Central and a 3:30 Central kickoff on Labor Day. And, then really going forward after that, it's Friday night and 3 Saturday games, kind of head-to-head with college football. There's 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, or 1 on Friday and 3 on Saturday. And that's typically the way it goes. And, it can kind of be all over the place. Week 8, we got a Wednesday, then 2 Friday games. So we can count on a game on Friday for sure. Pretty much on a Saturday, but then it just kind of bounces around depending on what's going on in the world and the cost of tea in China.
Well, and of course, in Canada, the college football here is probably not as a big deal, so they really don't consider themselves going head to head against college football in America. But that's just for us. That's one thing we're going to be dealing with. The other aspect of it is when you talk about 12 Central, that's 10 o'clock out here Pacific time.
Yeah.
Hey, you could with that game, you could make an appearance on our Wake and Bake segment because that's fairly early in the day.
You can wake and bake and have some Canadian bacon and watch the CFL. So
let's talk about this Saturday, BC at Ottawa. And what I'm looking at, when I look at that game, I see that BC scoring some points.
Yeah, BC can score some points, and I think you're looking at the data and the averages. A lot of that has to do with that big second half comeback they made against Sask, where they came back from down. They had scored close to no points in the first half. So that took place. Last week they played Edmonton and they lost. It was a 21-16 game. Edmonton is the COVID-stricken team this week. So when I look at this game on Saturday, BC against Ottawa, I'm taking the 5 points in Ottawa. I think BC has had some pretty inconsistent quarterback play. We've seen Riley come out and just sling it all over the yard, looking like the Hall of Famer that he is. We've seen Nathan Rourke, the rookie, coming out of the University of Ohio. We've seen a mixed bag from BC. So when I look at that, and again, BC played Edmonton last week, so I don't know that we're going to get the full story of how the COVID has affected BC. connected to Edmonton. And so, all of that and those concerns, I'm taking the 5 points, and I'm taking the Ottawa Red Blacks. And I feel good taking points. And if this CFL season has taught us anything, it's that you're probably in good shape taking points.
Yeah, that BC game was the 20-1 second half. And I saw that, and I went over to the data entry lady and said, I think you made a typo here. It says 20-1. She goes, no, it said 20-1. And it was 20-1 in the second half. Now, the one thing about BC that I'm looking at, they have played 3 games. Ottawa's only played 2. But in the second half of those 3 games, BC has allowed a total of 13 points. So you know what? If they're not scoring and they're not giving up points, maybe that under 42, 43 is a play too.
The under probably is a play. The only thing I'll add to that the raw number won't tell you is that week 2 BC, that was the Calgary game where Bo Levi Mitchell threw 4 interceptions. I don't think that they're going to get 4 interceptions. No team throws 4 interceptions very often. So, and truthfully, them being on the receiving end of 4 interceptions, they should have had a little bit more than 15 points on the board in week 2.
No doubt about it. And again, you usually only throw 4 interceptions once. They don't usually give you a chance to do it twice. And then later that weekend, Sunday, 7 o'clock Eastern, so that'll be 4 o'clock in San Diego, Calgary at Winnipeg. The line is showing 43.5 and 5. So
this is another one where I'm looking at 2 teams, and I have completely switched my opinion of them from week 1 and week 2. Winnipeg is not scoring a ton of points. Winnipeg had 19 points week 1. Week 2, they had 20 points. Big margin because they were shutting teams down. Well, then they came out last week, and Toronto hung 30 points on them, yet Winnipeg's still at 23 points. This is not a poor performance at 23 points, but they're just not putting up as many points as they're going to need to play Calgary. I think Calgary found something last weekend with a quarterback change. They came out against Al's team that had put 30 points on the board a week prior against a pretty reasonably good Edmonton defense. So when I look at this game, 5.5 points, I just it's difficult to go against Winnipeg. But 5.5 points is a lot to lay. So this one is too hot to go. This is a walk away for me. I think you could be good on either side. If this line shifts by 0.5 point, I'll be on Winnipeg because I think coming off a loss, they're one of the best coached teams in the league. I just don't like the 0.5 point. I'd probably at this point, if it shifts to 5, I'll take Winnipeg. If it doesn't, I might think about buying the hook. Although you sit here and if you don't like it at 5.5, that probably means you like the other guy. So, but I think Winnipeg's probably the safe play here. Although this one's going to be close. This is not going to be a stress-free blowout game.
And one of the things we have noticed over the last couple of weeks is the live action is much more available on Canadian football than it was early in the season.
It has been. And I'm guessing there's larger dollar amounts, not necessarily more transaction activity, but we're seeing lines shift a little bit more aggressively. So there might be bigger dollar amounts going into it, because for this game, like the Hamilton game, that was 2.5. Hamilton, Montreal, and it's at 2. So that spread has shifted since the time it was posted. So this Calgary Winnipeg game, it wouldn't surprise me if there was some money that went into it. But you're right, we are seeing some live action. We're definitely seeing more options at halftime, which is what we're looking for. We want to be able to switch sides after we get a feel for the game.
Yeah, bottom line is it doesn't matter whether it's Saturday or Sunday, and it doesn't matter whether you're in Canada or New Haven, Connecticut. We're cashing tickets. That's what we do, and we appreciate your help doing it, Wes.
We are cashing tickets north of the border.
We'll talk to you later, eh? And it's whenever I talk Paulo, I laugh because Paulo, when we had nothing to bet on during the pandemic, you still found us winners.
Well, definitely. Remember, we went to the Faroe Islands. We went to so many different things, and most of them were winners, especially that Nicaragua. We were doing fantastic things. I don't think we even had a losing week with all these small little leagues.
No, there was a few perfect weeks. I do remember 7-0 and 8-0 weeks, and it really was for me. You know what? us Americans, we tend to focus on America. We really don't really know the rest of the world like some of the international players do. But the bottom line is you taught me a few countries I didn't know where they were.
And not only that, that Mexico thing, just when we started, when you had that sponsor in Mexico, just when we started doing so good with that Mexican league, then the Corona started, and just completely, because you were becoming pretty good at the Mexican league. I was really getting good at the Mexican league, and the Mexican league is a league that I'm definitely going to be giving plays out because it works out with a time difference.
Well, that's our friends down at Caliente Sports.
Yeah, the Caliente. Yeah, exactly.
People don't realize Caliente has been here longer than Las Vegas has been here. They've got almost 100 years of taking bets.
Not only that, they're pretty organized and they're very sharp. Remember, they're very, very sharp, and they know somebody that when they give good plays, they give good plays.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I tell people, and you've heard me say it before. If you've watched any of the shows, I always give Chris Martinez down there and TJ a shout out. He was the first one before you to tell me soccer is where you can make money.
Exactly. We have definitely found that out, and especially with some big plays in Nicaragua with seconds left. Remember, 13-1 with that Manoa. That team there made us so much money in Nicaragua. I mean, all these small little leagues have been delivering since me and you have been doing this.
And I think the reason why the U.S. fans just don't appreciate soccer is because they don't like, 1-0 or 2-1. They like, scoring and stuff. But if you're looking at cash tickets, and really, Paulo, that's all we care about is cash tickets. You cash enough tickets, you're going to win money. I don't really care what the final score is.
Exactly. I mean, look at this. Remember last week I gave you a couple of plays from this, I think it was Bolivia or something. And with 75 minutes, the game was 0-0. And all of a sudden, bam, 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 you see the goals. Who cares if it's Bolivia? As long as the money's cash. That's the bottom line.
Now, there's no doubt in soccer, the live action is where you make the big winners. But there is nothing better than when you've got the over in the first half of 0.5 or both teams to score and 23 minutes into the first 45 minutes of the game, you've already cashed. They don't pay a lot, but they cash.
They cash. That's the bottom line. Cashing tickets, because people think that you need odds and this and that. But in soccer, the power always wins. And when you know who's powerful, who's good, who's playing hurt and all that, with my information and everything, I mean, since we've been doing this, and thanks to you, I've even gotten good at the NFL, because you see what I pick at the NFL. I mean, this is like, because I was never much of an NFL player, but you taught me the NFL. So now we got the soccer, we got the NFL too.
Yeah, and I would, if you're looking at the top of the screen right now, you see the flashscore.com, and I'm giving them a shout out only because they cover soccer. They cover every sport.
Yeah.
Here's what I tell people. Every sport in every country in the entire world is on Flash Score. But more importantly, the soccer, they do the commentary, because you know what? I've got a couple places where I can get the streams, but sometimes you can't get the streams. And and if you're following a play that you already made, say Paulo gives you a play and you're following it, the Flash Score commentary and the Flash Score statistics, that's what I use. Now, there's a couple things that'll never change in soccer. It's the same in any sport. It's like when there's a video review, okay? Video review, yeah. Ugly.
I know. Last week, remember we had this video review, and I mean, sometimes these video reviews, like even yesterday in the Salzburg Bromby game, I mean, okay, the goal came out, but in the video review, that was not an offside play, and it's tricky sometimes with these video reviews.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but I never win one. Whenever there's a video review and they take the goal off the board, it's almost always my team. And the other thing is, they hit the bar a lot. People don't realize that.
Oh my! A lot talking about the bar. I mean, that bar. So many times the ball wants to go in, drops on the line, and like you said, the bar. But sometimes it happens. But the bottom line is that if you're cashing more tickets, who cares about that? I don't care me if I lose 1 or 2 days, because the bottom line is at the end of the month, you know that more than anybody that I'm going to be a winner.
No doubt about it. And so, so one of the things that we're going to talk about as we go through this series is not just winning, but how they could become better handicappers too. Because, you can give them the play, but once the game starts, these guys could, run for an hour and a half of soccer. And it only takes one goal at the right time to change your entire day. So when we get back from break, we're going to start talking about some plays for late Saturday and for Sunday in soccer with Paulo's plays on To Be Determined. Welcome back to Paulo's plays on To Be Determined. Now, the one thing about soccer is, you've taught me this, but I could see it with my own eyes. After you watch quality international soccer, Paulo, that MLS stuff is hard to watch.
First of all, I don't know if you've noticed that soccer in the European, I might be off 1 week, but you've never seen me being off 2 weeks. But that MSL, I don't know what it is. It's just not the same quality. The play is not the same. The money movement's not the same. I mean, who is playing this league? I mean, this is not a league to invest. It's just not.
The one thing about international soccer, on the East Coast, it's early, but on the West Coast, I mean, some of these games are going to kick off way before we're on the air with To Be Determined. So those are the kind of plays that they want to keep in touch with us, because once in a while, what we'll do is we'll share those. Well, I follow you. You share them on social media, but there is nothing better than waking up in the morning. I grab my phone, I hit the Flash Score app, and usually, what do I know? I got more money in my account than I did when I went to bed, and that's all.
And not only that, now that we can do, especially with the Japanese league, because you've seen how profitable that is. That Japanese league, I mean, come on. The odds on that league, so like starting next week, we're going to be more organized, so we're going to be able to get into more leagues.
All right, well, let's start. Saturday, after we go off the air, Juventus plays.
Yeah. At this game, for me, like last week, Juventus was robbed. They should have won that game with that Ronaldo goal, because that goal was not offside in the last minute. This week, Juventus is playing Udinese. I agree, the odds are low, but I don't see Juventus this week having a problem. I think even if it's at 1.3, Juventus this week is going to be hammered. I see Juventus winning easily this game, and there's going to be goal scored in this game. I don't know if Udinese is going to score a goal, but I can see Juventus putting it up, because they are really, really have all the advantage against this game. And after last week, I see them winning this week. Like I said, big.
And that's a great point that you made. If you look at your sports book and you look at all the plays you can make on an NFL game, they might have 140 different plays you can make. On a soccer game, it's more like 440.
Yeah, exactly.
So even if a team is a big favorite, and a lot of times you'll hear Paulo say the 1.3, because he's using the European way of the odds. They don't use the way that we use it. You have to kind of break that down. But there's always opportunities. And then Sunday morning, we got Barcelona.
Yeah. Last week, Barcelona, and I posted it on my social media, was playing against Bilbao. Bilbao is a very difficult place to play. They're Basques, very difficult, hard team to play. But this week, they're going home, and they're playing against a team that if Barcelona has any chance of competing, I see Barcelona winning this week. Even though they're missing players and Messi has left and everything, and they're pretty good value at 1.42 right now. The odds opened up at 1.42, and I can see Barcelona winning this week, because I don't think they're going to have much of a problem with the team they're playing against.
And then the third game we talked about is in Italy, AC Milan.
Yeah, AC Milan last year was a very big surprise. This year, They lost their goaltender Dollaroma, but again, they're still a good team with Ibrahimovic in there and all that. And still value at 1.42, even though it's the second week of the Italian soccer. I can see AC Milan getting the win there also.
Yeah, so if I would give anybody any advice on any of these games, it would be get your plays in, make the plays that you're going to make for the game, and then pay attention. And really, it almost becomes the second half, right about the 60-minute mark. Now, understand, up to 2 years ago, Paolo, I may have watched 10 soccer games in my life.
Yeah.
And then after you and I started, and we went, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months, and we talked soccer every single week.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of soccer. One of the things I look for is I pay attention at the 60th minute mark, and how many times between 60 and the end of the game do we see 70, 80% of the goals scored in that period?
Yeah, because that's what's happening. Because if you really look at it, you got to follow the game all the way through. Some people, why they avoid these big favorites, but you know it, and I know it, that most of these big favorites are money machines. They're big money machines. Okay, sometimes they won't come out. But if you really look at it in the long run, on a whole soccer season, these are money machines, and people avoid them because they say, but if you're going to put the money down, like when I put money down or my client puts the money down, he doesn't bet. He doesn't want a long shot. He wants to bet. Remember what I told you, one play a week, one good play, and that's it. So
no doubt about it. And as we're going forward, don't get me wrong, we're here to cash tickets, but I'm telling you right now, Paolo's winning percentage is going to be very, very high because he's doing what most people should do. He's betting the best team. All right, Paolo, we always appreciate your time, and we will talk to you again next week.
Definitely. Looking forward to it.
EasySportsData.com. The books use data. Shouldn't you too? And this is easy sports data, like the preschoolers use. EasySportsData.com.
All right, so let's, you know what? I always appreciate talking to Tommy. Now, don't get me wrong, Tommy and I talk all the time, but we haven't had you on the show, Tommy, in a while, huh?
No, it's been a while, yeah.
Now, you grew up in New Jersey, and you remember what it's like to have games kick off Saturday mornings at noon versus Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. And it's just it's a lot better when marijuana is legal, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it didn't stop me before, but
no, I appreciate that. Did you get a chance to see our poll on Twitter today?
I did not.
All right, so you're going to do it live for us. What's your opinion, Tommy? No THC for me. That's 1. 2 is sativa. 3 is indica, and 4 is either is good for me.
You know, I like certain things at certain times. I like sativa when I'm just gonna be out running around and doing stuff, and I like indica when I'm just trying to chill out at home, you know, or maybe help fall asleep.
So, well, in my garage, I still treat marijuana like it's illegal. You know, I hide in my garage. I think you've been to my house, but the bottom line is, I usually will have both, and it really. In the beginning, I didn't think about it. And don't get me wrong, you know, if I'm at somebody's house and all they have is a hybrid, I'm not going to complain. You know, it's like if you go to somebody's house for dinner, you just kind of eat what they give you. You know, you don't say this is good. I'm going to go to In-N-Out, you know?
Yeah.
All right. So, but it really is. Now think about how long do we have a history of getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning and having to go to get down to Mexico by the time 9 o'clock kickoff?
We did it every day for every Saturday and Sunday during football season for 8 or 9 years.
Years and years and years. And that's one of the reasons why I love having the show from 8 to 9 on Saturdays, because as soon as you kick off, you know, football starts. But the problem is this, as you know, when you're drinking and you're up late, and it's so funny about marijuana because, you know, you could smoke marijuana all night and you wake up, you're fine. You drink all night. You wake. You could literally have a 0 blood alcohol and still feel terrible. But the marijuana can stay in your system for a month and you don't even know it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, so the first thing we do is we get up and, you got to, if you haven't already handicapped, you almost have to handicap at night. Now, don't get me wrong. By the middle of the season, we kind of know what we're doing anyway. It doesn't take much. But the beginning of the season is not that easy. And there's a game Saturday, and this game counts. It's at 10 o'clock. So it'll be about an hour after we shut down here. And it's going to be college football, the real deal. And there's 5 games on Saturday. You got any opinions so far?
Well, yeah, actually I do. In that Nebraska-Illinois game, Nebraska's giving 7 points on the road, and they're just not a good team. I mean, they haven't been a good team since Scott Frost got there. And as a matter of fact, they've been pretty awful. So I'd take the Fighting Illini at home and the 7 points.
They have actually got their butts kicked a few times too, Frost's team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Buckeyes every year drop 50 on them. Every year.
Yeah, we're not talking about losing. We're talking about getting beat. And, of course, I think
they could lose outright, and they're plus 210 on the money line, Illinois. So that might be a little action that I get in.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love talking to you about. You know what? You're very knowledgeable about a lot of things. But when it comes to gambling, I mean, you're a poker player. You know the horses. You bet sports. I've seen you do marvelous things on a 3-card poker table.
Indeed.
But what about this? This first half, second half thing that you do? Do you have a name for it?
I just bet in the halves. That's what I call it. And I almost never ever bet the full game anymore unless I'm playing a money line. And I just like betting the halves. I think it's a little bit easier to handicap a half than it is the whole game. That's just my personal opinion. Other people will argue with me, but I bet maybe 10 full games the whole football season. I almost never ever bet them because I like playing the halves, and I like to start with $100 on the game, and if everything goes right with my 2-team parlays, I can cash out almost $1,000 with $100 investment. And I've done it. You know how many times I've done it. I've done it 50 times.
Right. So you get a $100 2-teamer on the first half and roll it for the second half.
I get $280 for that plus the 100 back, and I put the $380 on the second half, and there's my $1,000.
And I've seen you do it where you've had unders and overs and favorites. I mean, it doesn't matter. You bet what you think is going to cash.
Yeah, exactly. And I hardly ever hedge. I do the reverse hedge. I do the pile on. So. Oh,
I love the reverse hedge. We've talked about that numerous times on the show. Where you know what, I liked it. I like it. That's it. Well, I'm not changing my mind.
Yeah. I liked it 3 hours ago. I still like it.
There's no doubt about it. All right. So when we come back from break, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a few of the other games. We're going to talk about just what you're looking at for this new season because football season is upon us. You're listening to Wake and Bake on To Be Determined.
You can get championship footballs at championshipfootballs.com. They offer a 100% money-back guarantee on every single souvenir football that they sell. It's the coolest present that they'll open that day, guaranteed. There's nothing worse than trying to find the right gift for somebody that already has everything. Whether that special present is for a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan or an Alabama Crimson Tide backer, maybe Gramps is a lifelong Dallas Cowboys supporter, or your brother-in-law is in LSU Tiger territory. Know a member of the Baylor Alumni Association? Is there a better Father's Day gift for someone who's a Kansas City Chiefs fan? Send them the coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Now, if your favorite pro team is the Buffalo Bills or those Minnesota Vikings, well, we're sorry about that. Also, if you're a New Mexico State Aggie or a Tulane Green Wave alum, not much they can do. After all, the name isn't nice effort. You had a pretty good season, footballs.com. The name name is championshipfootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed.
Welcome back to Wake and Bake on To Be Determined. I am second half Chaz. We've got Tommy, a.k.a. Tommy Penn's with us. Now, if you're watching this on the in New York, yeah, maybe it's like 11:45, but out here in San Diego, it ain't 9 o'clock yet. So the wake and bake aspect of life is really important when marijuana is legal. So we've already talked about 10 o'clock games. So you get about an hour today. But starting next week, Tommy, these games, they come at you in waves, don't they?
Yeah, there'll probably be like at least 10 games at 9 a.m. And most of the Big Ten games go off at 9 a.m. I'm a Big Ten guy.
So remember, when we had the show on ESPN 1700, we got off the air right at 9 o'clock, and we had a hustle to get to the bar. And it's not easy always finding bars that are open at 9 a.m.
No, it isn't.
We ended up at the beach. Beach bars tend to open early. Living at the beach is a pretty good place to live. It really is.
The Silver Fox is open at 6 a.m.
Yeah, there you go. So let's talk about what you're looking at before we get into a couple of these later games on Saturday. Well, let's talk about what you're looking for this season. What are you thinking? It's so many different things, right? First of all, you got the virus, you got COVID, you got the college teams moving conferences, you got pro teams playing 17 games. Give me some of your thoughts.
I've in the last, 10 years or so, I've become so much more of a college football fan than a pro football fan. It's got nothing to do with anything other than I just like watching college games better. And what I think the biggest thing, and it's going to help the big time schools a lot more than the little schools, is the likeness thing now. I mean, these kids are going to come in as freshmen as millionaires and they all get brand new Maseratis if they want from the dealership, but it's going to be a recruiting point. So the Alabamas and the Ohio States and the Texases, all those teams with the deep, hardcore boosters, they're going to be able to get these kids in there that other schools like Rutgers and Maryland just can't get in.
Well, remember in the old days, what they pitched the education, right? They pitched the fact they pitched the fact that if you are a good program, we can get you to the NFL. But now they're going to be able to pitch, hey, our top 5 guys all made over 1.5 last year.
Yeah, the incoming quarterback at Alabama has already signed the $2 million worth of deals. It's crazy. These guys played like a quarter.
God bless him. God bless him. All right, so let's do this. Let's look at Saturday. Now, in the past, we've gone up and we've done the 2 games in one day where we hit the Coliseum and then we hit the Rose Bowl. This year, there's only the Bruins are playing. They're hosting Hawaii. It's 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 our time. I'm showing 68.5, and the Bruins are minus 18. They still think they got that old Oregon coach. He hasn't been fired yet, has he?
No, he's still there. You know what? UCLA, especially first game of the year, that's too many points. I just believe it's too many points. I would take the points in that game for sure. I just think UCLA hasn't set anybody's world on fire, and they give up points like nobody's business. Their defense is a sieve. At least it was last year. Like every game they played was like 55-54. Their defense is a sieve. So you can score on them that way. That means you can keep the game close. So I'll take the 18. I'll take the Rainbow Warriors on the mainland and the 18 points. And I definitely take the over.
Yeah, well, 68.5 seems like a lot of points, but like you said, with a team that gives up 35, 40 points to teams that aren't very good, 68.5 doesn't seem like that much of a stretch,
They could have 60 at the half combined already.
And then the other game you said you wanted to talk about was the UConn Fresno.
Yeah. Connecticut's just terrible. They're just an absolutely putrid program. But Fresno State's, they're not anything great either, but they're tough at home. Plus it's my wife's alma mater, so I'm going to lay the 27.
Yeah. In the past couple of years, and then last year I think they ended up going like 4-6 against the spread, but in the last couple of years before that, given 27, UConn was a first half cover.
Yes. Yeah, they're just not good. They're just not a good team. They're a Division One AA team playing in 1A is basically what it is, or the football championship division. I don't want to. There's no such thing as Division Two anymore.
I know they really have. They've shaken up the names quite a bit here, but they're still the Huskies. They still got a pretty decent basketball program, but their football team it's really, really bad. And we talk about that all the time, Tommy. Sometimes it isn't betting the winners; it's betting the losers. You bet against the team. It's the best way to go.
Yeah. Just find a team that's gonna get clobbered and lay the points. I have no problem doing that.
All right, so looking forward to a real good season, hoping to have you on again. One of the things we're looking to do with the show is, get some of those cannabis companies that are out there now and showing us some of those new products. And think about it. When you and I first started, there weren't too many opportunities, and the nickel bats had stems and seeds in them, and we've come a long way, my man.
Indeed.
All right, thanks again, Tommy. Have a great week. Thanks again for joining us on To Be Determined on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, Belly Up Sports Podcast Network, and the Sports Betting Channel. I hope you paid attention to our guests. I mean, these guys are really, really good. They've been giving out winners for years. You're going to cash some tickets because that's our motto. Always be cashing.